Election watch, no doubt, what the Alliance for National Transformation brings to the 2021 table as far as politics and removing President Museveni from power is concerned. Now get this. Last week, the Alliance for National Transformation endorsed my next guest as its flag bearer. But what does this new party bring to the election? Has the 1 year and 3 months been enough for them to build momentum to take power? What is the party's platform? To answer all these questions, we have Major General Mugisha Muntu, the party's flag bearer. Very good morning and thank you for making it right here on Morning at NTV.
Thank you. Thank you for
It's really good to have you. You were the commander of the UPDF from 1989 all the way to 1998. Okay. First as the NRA commander, 1989 to 1995, and from 1995 to 98 as the UPDF commander. You have quite a resume. You were also the FDC president from 2012 to 2017, but then you had a fallout the following year, 2018, when we saw Honorable Patrick Amuriatobo coming to the leadership of FDC. You cited some ideological differences and some wanting strategies. For them, they are confrontational. For you, you were saying, I'm non-confrontational. You're a pacifist. But then we are getting into this conversation. How will transformation of change be achieved in Uganda? ANT has been, at least as a party for a year and 3 months. That experience you've garnered within those few, months, is it enough to take on President Museveni, and how will it be done?
The situation largely is in the favor of change. There may seem to be quite a number of complications, as there has always been, because of an incumbent and a regime which is unwilling to relinquish power, a regime that is ready to do anything possible to hang on to power, using extraordinary means, putting impediments in the way of those who would be competing for power. That's one of the major problems that we face. However, largely within our society, within our community, within our population, a large population, a big percentage, desire to see change. However, at the same time, there is fear which is prevalent within our society. I think because of our history, unfortunately, we've never seen any situation in our country, experience any situation where a president has ever handed over power peacefully to another. So history still haunts us. It creates people to be fearful of change, more so when they see the nature of contestation that there has always been when an incumbent doesn't want to leave power peacefully. So that exercises people's minds.
Are people fearful
they want to see change,
Mr. Muntu, or are they fearful of the environment through which they can exercise their rights to get the change?
The environment. It's not fear of change.
I see.
Because if we operate in a normal environment, then there will be no fear of change. And therefore, in a sense, people want change, and many, they don't know how, they don't know what would come with change, and therefore, because of our history, more people are more fearful of instability if it came out of a change that is not well managed. Now, that wouldn't be a problem if the sitting regime was doing things in a way that would give confidence and certainty to the population that, you know what, you're going to an election, it's going to be transparent, it's going to be fair, and whoever wins will take power. That's not the current situation within which we are operating. Most people believe that as you hear the comments within the public saying that, you know what, there can't be change. And the regime feeds into that, keeps on doing a number of things, in a sense playing psychological warfare to cause people to remain in that state of fear because they know it plays to their advantage. Therefore, those of us who are on the side of change have to use a lot of skill to ensure that we do things in a way, we communicate in a way, we organize in a way to walk people out of that fear. Two, to cause people to build trust in us. To know, one, that change is possible. Two, that we are able to manage it even after we take power, that to be able to hold the country together and manage power responsibly. The more we do that, the more people trust us. It is one of the weapons that even the regime cannot withstand. Because the moment people get convinced in their minds, then they'll be guided to do the things which are necessary to cause the change. So we have to do a bit of work on the side of the opposition.
And of course, you were doing some work before COVID-19 struck with regards to your grassroots party structures.
Yes.
How did that go, and how did COVID-19 deter that situation?
Unfortunately, it was disrupted because I remember we were coming from Zimbabwe at that time. We had reached Mbarara. We were going for a continued tour to Kunjiri, then Kaware, and then we were going to West Nile, then Acholi sub-region, Tezu sub-region, then Mbale, Busoga, and then back into Kampala. We had about 17 locations which were going. And then we waited, and in the evening, they, announcements that there would be a lockdown. So we had to pull back. And now that the easing of the lockdown has happened, we are just simply waiting for the Electoral Commission to clarify on the issue of holding public meetings. First and foremost, those which are regulated, the ones of where you can have 100, 150 people, 200 people. The moment that is clarified, then we go back on the road. We'll be doing two things simultaneously, trying to see how we can continue with the exercise, which we were working on before the lockdown, and also prepare for the electoral process.
Well, the electoral process is one thing, but then we have virtual campaigns that are taking center stage. Mr. Muntu, do you think that is a platform that will offer you a leveled ground to actually send the message home? Because as you said, to change the mindset of the people, you need to send the information.
Yes.
So if we are dealing with a lockdown, the easing that also negates people moving up and about, conducting rallies, how will you send the message home? What are the plans?
Currently, we are engaged with the Electoral Commission, trying to reason out a number of issues, because the Electoral Commission has indicated that because of the fear of the spread of the coronavirus, that we cannot have rallies. Even the regulated meetings is an issue which is still under discussion, and it's on the basis of that, as they say, that they were advised by the Minister of Health, that therefore we would have to use media, social media, electronic, print, and other forms of communications other than the physical interaction with the population. We are engaged. From where we are at now, it looks like they are going to be a readjustment in terms of the regulated meetings. I keep hearing that. And I hope that it will be determined very soon so that we are aware, and then we start engaging in that aspect. Now, once that happens, the remaining contention is going to be on rallies. And we want to heavily contest that, because we don't just want to take it, for granted that whatever the Ministry of Health says that it's necessarily the correct thing. We have to engage with them. We need them to convince us, because we also hear what is happening on the outside. Just yesterday, I saw a clip of one of the scientists, I think in the United States of America, and they were quoting WHO, indicating that that it seems now there is evidence that those people who are, I think they call them asymptomatic, people who have the virus but who have not, when it has not developed.
Yes, they have no symptoms.
Into a disease, that they do not, at that stage, that the virus cannot infect others.
That's what they used to say.
Now we have to wait and verify that.
Yes.
Because should it be true, once it's verified, if it's not fake news, then that also feeds into the argument that we've been having. Because the argument we've been having is that, look, at Chikubu, for example, Chikubu, when you go there, there is a rally on a daily basis. The setting is of a rally, the crowds, the kind of activities that are taking place. The only difference is that there's no platform and a person holding a microphone. That's the only difference. So the question is, if Chikubo is going to be operating like that, now, during, and even after elections, why on earth would we therefore stop rallies? More so if we can check in Chikubo for the next 1 month. We've been proposing that. Let the scientists go and monitor. Do tests now. Keep testing for a whole month. Even if they find people who are infected, but they are not sick, then it shows that either the strain that there is here is not as the strains we have seen elsewhere.
Of course it's not.
We don't know.
Actually, the scientists are saying the strain in Africa isn't the strain in China and Europe. They're different.
That's why we need an engagement with the technical people.
So let me get this straight. You're open to the suggestion of holding rallies?
Yes, we think we can hold those rallies as long as we all reach a conclusion that it will not cause death of people. But we don't want to be stampeded into making a decision which can affect decision making in politics. Politics is at the core of how a country is managed. And if it is mismanaged, there can even be more death from other things other than COVID. However, we also don't want to go into a situation where people's lives are going to be exposed and they die.
Yes.
So there must be serious interaction for us to reach a conclusion that yes, this is possible and it will not cause infections or death, or this is not possible. We all have to reach that agreement together. We don't just want to be stampeded into a decision that is made by people who either are doing out of misunderstanding what is happening, or maybe, who knows, maybe because of vested interest. We can't judge that. That's why we need that interaction. And we really hope that the EC is going to be forthcoming in ensuring that the Ministry of Health officials engage in the meetings in which we are.
Scientists contend that it's a disaster waiting to happen because asymptomatic people, now according to the research we've received, indicates that asymptomatic people can shed the virus. Before, WHO was telling us it's impossible for an asymptomatic person to pass on the virus from one person to another. The same people came back again and they backtracked and said, you know what? We are now getting information that you can, there is a possibility that you can spread the virus. So the issue there, you're saying that we can have the rallies, but then the scientists are saying there could be a disaster waiting to happen.
The clip I saw yesterday indicates that it is rare for an asymptomatic person to pass on the infect.
Okay, let's talk about how. Let's talk about how you intend to unseat President Museveni. People are saying that the Alliance for National Transformation is still young in the game, 1 year and 3 months. But as Romy Bisiko, I believe Mr. Munti have a lot of experience. Having born in 1958, it was a very, very pivotal year. 4 years after the launch of DP and 2 years before the launch of UPC. So you were, born in a year of political maturity in Uganda right here, before independence. So with all that experience in mind, how do you plan to unseat President Museveni come 2021? We need that to know your concrete plan from A to Z.
One, someone said that nobody can stop an idea whose time has come. We believe that people want change, and they want qualitative change. Our country has been bedeviled by politics of corruption, of nepotism, of injustices, of unfairness, and of undemocratic practices. We have a feeling that for the last 50, 80 years, people have looked at what has been happening. And there's this sense that, you know what, we need change, and that change needs to be qualitative. And we are feeding into that because our message is simple as Alliance for National Transformation. We are saying that the only formula now for two things to happen, that change from one government to another, but qualitative at the same time. That you get the nature of people who will manage power better than it has been managed hitherto. We keep communicating that because, one, For us to prepare to change the nature of politics, to change the culture of politics in this country, we need good people, men and women. And there are many in this country. And we keep communicating to the public, meeting individuals, small groups, and telling them, look, if you are someone who believes in justice, if you are someone who believes in democracy, if you are someone who believes in zero tolerance to corruption, if you are someone who believes in fairness, in the manner in which governance is conducted, if you are someone who believes that the country's resources should be managed well so that they can benefit everybody, it's a time for you to get into politics. That's the only way there can be change and it being qualitative at the same time. Because change can happen. It has happened many times. But it can be change in terms of faces, but the culture remains the same. Where you continue with corruption, you continue with injustices, you continue with nepotism, you continue with the division, we continue with the deception, we continue with the lies, as has always happened. So we believe that once that message sinks, and we get people who want to have change, but qualitative change at the same time, and we are focusing on people right from the councillors at LC3, LC5, mayors, LC3 chairpersons, LC5 chairpersons, and members of parliament. And then tap into the population so to mobilize resources and put it behind the candidates, put it behind the party infrastructure. We'll be able to build momentum from down. Our hope is that the population is going to be galvanized by that idea, that, you know, enough is enough. And also to understand, too, as Albert Einstein said, that for you to do the same thing, the same way, over and over, and expect different results is a sign of madness, unless we are mad as a people. The only solution we can have change and qualitative change at the same time is to have good people who come into politics. Why? Because nobody is going to give what they don't have. If you vote in a corrupt politician, and then you expect that corrupt politician is going to manage the resources of whatever position he or she occupies in a transparent way, then you are the one who has a problem. And this formula, once it's applied, and we don't have a patent over it as the ANT, any political group that applies that formula fast, not only will it take power, it also transforms this country. The only difference is that for us, we are focused on it consciously, deliberately, and we'll keep on communicating over and over, over and over, until people get it. That yes, change can happen, but it doesn't necessarily have to be qualitative change. Unless people who desire qualitative change engage with us so that we create a critical mass of leaders at the different levels and across generations. And then not only will we be able to take power, but we will manage that power responsibly to be able to achieve what I've already indicated. That's why we started ANT as a value-based party. You hear people say, that is for Europe. That is for America. But there are people dying in oceans crossing to Europe. What are they looking for there? It's because of the nature of politics that there is in Europe. It's the nature of the development processes that they have gone through. How have they achieved that? Because they have had value-based politics. So whom do we expect is going to plant that here in Uganda or Africa? It is us. Nobody is going to do it for us. And we've got a number of people who believe in values in politics. So we keep asking them, move into politics, engage, do whatever is necessary, if it requires whatever sacrifices, financial, time, and whatever else is needed for us to build that critical number of leaders at different levels, different age groups, and then we can steer our country and build a future that we are certain of. Because once you have people who are going to do what is right, there's no way you can fail to change this society. Yes.
Values-based politics versus sentimental politics. Yes. Now, the latter is the reason the Democratic Alliance actually disintegrated in 2015-2016. Remember, sentimental politics. Now, values-based politics brings us back to the United Forces for Change. Yes, another opposition alliance that is being put together to trounce President Museveni come 2021. Now, do you, as the Alliance for National Transformation, have any plans to march with the United Forces for Change?
Yeah, we've been planning that. We haven't, we talk about it, but also do the things which are necessary to build an environment in which we're able to cooperate. Because even before we launched Alliance for National Transformation, we had, an outfit we called New Formation. And what we did at every point, in whatever time we would be able to make, whatever time we would want to make any decision, we would brief the other colleagues in the opposition. We would regularly brief until this time. We still do so with People Power, with the Democratic Party, with the JEMA. Why? Because we wanted to build bridges of trust. For them to know what we are doing, for us to know what they would be doing, and therefore ensure that by the time we get to a point where we would want to build a coalition or a framework for cooperation, that we build an environment where we would relate to each other with ease. TDA was a very, very unfortunate
what led to its collapse?
Emotions.
Sentimental politics.
Emotions. We tend to, it's an unfortunate thing that we really have to focus on and see how to overcome in our country generally. Because we focused on one thing as if it was the main objective, having one candidate. Yet the main objective was taking power and managing it responsibly. Those are the two main objectives. Now the method we would use would simply be a tool to achieving those objectives. And we didn't plan for a fallback in the event that we would fail for whatever reason to have one candidate. So we never psychologically prepared ourselves, in spite of a number of warnings which were raised in regard to that.
Are you psychologically prepared now?
We are. In NT we are.
As ANT, but
as
not,
ANT
not
we are.
DP, not FDC,
no,
not these JEMA other parties.
I cannot speak with for other parties, but we keep communicating to them all the time. We keep saying, look, there are a number of things that we need to do. One, we need to ensure that we are all stable internally. Two, we must build our capabilities in whatever way we believe we can build them. Because we know that the strength of the coalition is dependent on the strength of the component parts. And the stability of the coalition is dependent on the stability of the component parts. Two, that when we go into discussions, that we should all go in open-minded, not with one position to say, unless this is adopted, we cannot cooperate.
Yes.
No, you can have three things, and you agree on two. You may not necessarily agree on the third. So if you are mature and you have the skills, you can cooperate or coalesce around the two objectives, I mean the two issues that you agree upon, and you can put the other one, you can either shelve it or create conditions in which each of you conducts the third one where there is a disagreement in your own ways, but focus on the two where you are in agreement. It is possible. I mean, life, it's always good when you agree on everything. But there are times when you may not agree on everything.
Indeed.
So you must go in with the mindset that we need to hold together. That's the most important thing. One, that you go in together, and best case scenario, you overwhelm the regime. Worst case scenario, you go in and for whatever reason, you're not able to take power. But the most important thing when you go in together, then you come out together and you hit the ground running in continuing with the struggle for achieving the main objective, which is regime power, regime change and the management of power in a more responsible way than hitherto has happened. So we hope that we've learned from the mistakes of the past, because there was a collapse in 2006, about a coalition in 2011, in 2016. And we all need to learn from that, you know? So in 2016, it could have been possible, even with two different candidates, for us to maintain cooperation We could have emerged out of Nambole, I mean, the house where we used to be in Naguru, and addressed the press and said one of the objectives was to have one candidate, but for different reasons we've not had, but we put there a framework for cooperation. For example, we're going to work together in protecting the vote and other issues, of course, where we could have agreed. But the moment we failed to have the single candidate, we fell apart, we got into trenches, we slugged it out. In 2 weeks' time, people had literally lost hope.
Do you expect the same thing to happen with the United Forces for Change?
It shouldn't.
Because you're preparing as A&T on your own. People Power is also holding discussions on their own.
Yes.
DP is saying, I'm not part of it.
Yes.
So DP is split.
Yes.
You have a faction loyal to United Forces for Change and another faction loyal to Mr. Mao.
You see, it is possible even when some are create a framework for cooperation, even if others were not in. But if we maintain communication channels open and we keep on discussing, we can go in without frictions or focus on the main objective, regime change, and managing power thereafter in a more responsible way. Because people don't, they recognize when you are sucked into infighting. They also recognize when, even if you are not together, when you are operating in a mature way, you are not attacking each other, but you are all focused on the main objective. Now, that's what we need to work for. To manage competition in a civilized way, in a mature way. Because, I mean, you can even have opposition parties, not necessarily in any form of cooperation, but conducting themselves in the manner in which they campaign, in the manner in which they communicate, in a way which is constructive. Now, we have to mature at that level. Because, why is it necessary? Because the manner in which we conduct ourselves also will reflect the manner in which we manage power. Two, the challenges which we are going to be confronted with, because NRM is going to leave this country in shambles. So if we don't have this sense of maturity and responsibility to manage ourselves in a mature way, how on earth are we be able to equal the required responsibility and focus and discipline to manage the magnitude of the challenges we are going to be faced with?
And of course, last week, as you were chosen
after taking power.
And of course, I could sense the maturity in your politics last week when you were actually accepting your flag bearership for A&T as the flag bearer for the 2021 general elections. And now, in your acceptance speech, you did talk about going back to the system, getting Uganda back to functional systems and institutions. Does that statement actually mean that Uganda is devoid of functioning institutions and systems? And how is it that you're still going to participate in the same electoral process being put in place by the same non-functional systems? How are you going to be? How are you going to navigate all that?
For us to be able to take power, unfortunately, that's what we have to function in. And then you take power, and then you reverse the downward trend, and then you start rebuilding the systems, you start rebuilding the institutions.
So if there are no functioning systems and institutions, what does that actually mean for this administration?
Systems have been weakened. You can see the institutions which are being weakened as well. You see what the problems going on in the judiciary. You see the problems going on in the executive itself, the civil service. You see the problems going on in the legislative assembly, the parliament. It's going to be a painstaking work rebuilding institutions, purging corruption, creating a sense of where all the three arms of government can operate separately, but cooperating at the same time on how to manage the affairs of state. And also to create a sense of stability, to create a sense where every citizen knows that, you know, we are all equal before the law, whether you are the president, whether you are the commander of the army, the inspector general of police, whoever you are. You're a businessman, however rich you are, and when it comes to the law, it doesn't matter. That you are all equal before the law. For that to happen, there must be consciousness in the political actors, ourselves, and more so in the opposition, because the regime is devoid of that completely. And that's what has brought us the mess that we are in. Therefore, we have to prepare ourselves, even those who are in the opposition, but also attract people who already have that sense of consciousness to come into politics, because that's another problem we face. There are many Ugandans out there who already have cultivated that sense in themselves, who have the sense of maturity, who believe in democracy, who believe in justice, who believe in fairness, who believe in transparency in the management of national resources, but they are fearful of stepping into politics. They don't know that by not stepping into politics, and therefore become part of what will tilt the balance of forces in the favor of forces of change that are positive, they delay the process and the time when things can function in a sane way. So I would like to really talk to the Ugandan people who are good, men and women, old and young, who believe in democracy, who believe in justice, who believe in fairness, who believe in transparency in the manner in which national resources are managed, who believe in creating a country where we can all benefit from the resources of our country.
But Mr. Muntu,
that won't happen by itself.
Yes. But how will
it has been through a conscious, deliberate, focused effort by many together. The best thing is for them to go into the vehicles of change. In this case, we are offering ANT, that you come in, we create a critical mass so you can take power and manage it to achieve those objectives that we would have set ourselves. There is no other way. Nothing good ever happens by accident. It's just simply not possible.
The biggest problem here, Mr. Mugisha Muntu, is the non-functioning institutions and the system itself, which is also prevalent with the sentimental politics. Sentimental politics in Uganda has destroyed the systems, it has destroyed all the institutions. You hear people saying, we need President Museveni to come and help us. They're not going to talk to the person in the department who is going to be able to help them. So people are jumping the system to go to the main person who is President Museveni. Sentimental politics, how can we phase out sentimental politics? And you cannot talk about sentimental politics without hinting on commercialization of politics. All are actually in the same basket. How will we phase out the two from the politics in Uganda so that we can focus on values-based politics?
You know, the current regime is a representation of what can go wrong in any society. Because the things you are talking about are an inevitable outcome of the manner in which power is managed. I mean, you can see how people have been, their spirits have been crushed.
And it seems like it's the norm.
And because a significant number of people are still in a state of poverty, the regime, instead of lifting them up and building confidence in them, has used money as a tool of manipulation and fear as a tool of manipulation. And people are vulnerable. When you do that consistently for a long time, you can turn a society into a composition of there have to be people who recognize that a society, to reach its maximum potential, must be composed of people who have confidence in themselves. And therefore, any group that gets into power must know that one of the things they must have to do is to empower people, to rebuild confidence in them, to know that they are able, once you create the environment, that they'll be able to engage in activities that can boost the economy, that can boost innovation and creativity in science, in technology, in education, in health, in agriculture, all over. Because the human being is at the core of the development process. So if you don't empower that human being, you really are building on quicksand.
Empowering human beings, Mr. Muntu, but then in the Alliance for National Transformation, we've noticed that you are the flag bearer and you are unopposed.
Yeah.
When you go to people power, Mr. Bobby Wine is unopposed. Isn't this the same thing you're accusing the NRM of doing, having Mr. Museveni as their only candidate?
The difference between us and the NRM is that we had a clear, open, transparent process through which anybody who would want to vie for that position would come in and take forms, just get one proposer, 2 seconders, and 20 supporters, pay 3 million Uganda shillings as a candidate, and then they would vie for that position. There was no manipulation, there was no intimidation, there was nothing. Actually, ease was created even for any new entrant to come in. For example, you didn't have to even go and contact people physically. They could just give you a secondment through sending emails to the headquarters. And it was...
So there was a second opinion.
Anybody who would have wanted to come in could have come in. Maybe why many people who would have wanted to didn't, maybe it's because of the conditions within which we are operating. Maybe as a young party, amidst COVID, with the debate, we didn't even know yet whether we were going to conduct campaigns or not, because the lockdown in terms of whether to have open rallies or whether to have town hall meetings, we weren't even sure whether they would be allowed, much as we had indicated the date for the election. It could have been for such reasons. But the foundation that we are building in NT definitely will allow people to participate in the electoral processes, because we don't have fear within the organization. And that's one thing we want to ensure, that we build the foundation for sustaining that. Because any organization which creates, in the manner in which it operates, at least the leaders, once you create fear, then growth is stunted. That organization cannot be vibrant. That organization cannot grow over a long period of time. We know that, and therefore we are doing things different. But you can see, for example, when I decided to pick nomination forms, I had to resign the position of national coordinator.
2 weeks ago, yes.
Yeah, we deliberately designed that within our constitution, because we know the temptations of power. We don't want to depend on the good faith or goodwill of any leader. However good they are, you cannot, today you can have a good leader, tomorrow you may have someone who is manipulative. Therefore, we want to institutionalize checks and balances within the party. So that once you build a party which has got these kinds of systems within itself, then it will be easier for it even to build systems of checks and balances within governance when they take power. So everything we do is deliberate, it's conscious.
Speaking of checks and balances, let's talk about multi-party politics in Uganda for the last 14 to 15 years. Do you think this administration has offered a conducive environment for different parties to thrive in Uganda?
No. We are growing in spite of the impediments which are put in our way. I mean, one of the things that they spend a lot of time on is infiltration, is destabilization, is sowing seeds of confusion. And if you're an organization which doesn't have the skills to manage those, you'll really be weakened. You know, and unfortunately, in some cases, they succeed. But at the same time, some of the things they do, it seems now they are also experiencing them. So.
Parting shots, Mr. Muntu, as we wrap up, for the viewer right there, your voter in the 2021 general election. Final message.
We operate in a very, very complex situation, but at the same time we recognize that there is desire for change. We'd like to call upon all Ugandans, those who believe in democracy, in justice, in fairness, in transparency, in managing power through a fair and even-handed manner, that you join us in the Alliance for National Transformation. We are seeking for candidates at LC3 councillors, LC5 councillors, mayors, LC5 chairpersons, LC3 chairpersons, and members of parliament. And very soon we'll also be doing other measures to ensure that we can reinforce the campaigns that we're about to start, so we can be able to take power and manage that power responsibly to achieve the objectives which have eluded us for the last 58 years. Thanks a lot.
Wise words from Major General Mugisha Muntu. Many thanks for having made the time to speak to NTV. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
And on that note, we've come to the end of Morning at NTV. I'd like to wish a joyous birthday to all the kings, the queens, boys and girls who are celebrating their birthdays on this particular Monday. Have yourselves a blessed one. My name is Romeo Busiku. Do anticipate another update of the day's developing stories at around 1 p.m. But then I'll be right back tomorrow for another round of Morning at NTV. Do mark your dates. Have yourselves a blessed day.